please speak loud and clear in the microphone, so you might be for the board that everyone will be able to understand. You proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am. You gotta talk really loud, though.
Hi, how are you?
Good, ma'am. Can you tell us your name and spell your last name?
Yes, Taisha Lewis. Last name is Lewis.
And how do you spell your first name, too, ma'am?
Tyesha.
Ms. Lewis, do you know Otha Wallace?
Yes,
How do you know Otha Wallace?
he's my kid's father.
How long have you known him for?
About 7 or 8 years now.
Where were you living back on June 23rd, 2021?
On Kingston in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Do you know the address?
133 Kingston Avenue,
Was that an apartment out there?
apartment number 8.
Who did you live there with?
Me and my kids.
Did Mr. Wallace sometimes stay there?
Yes,
Back then on June 23rd, 2021, were you working, ma'am?
I was.
What were you working at?
I was a manager at McDonald's.
What was your normal shift?
I was the opening manager, so I would go in around 4 or 5, get off at 2 o'clock p.m.
That specific day, did you go into work?
Yes,
Got off right around 2:30?
yes,
Was Otha Wallace also working at McDonald's?
yes.
Do you know what shift he would work?
He was also opener, but he got off a little bit later than me. So I can't remember his exact schedule for that day, but
Sure. When you got off, what did you do that day?
my daughter was in gymnastics at the time, so we went home, showered, got her dressed for gymnastics, and we left to Port Orange.
Did you have contact, did you see Otha Wallace at work that day?
Yes,
Is that the last time you saw him that day?
yes.
Subsequent or after, when you left for gymnastics with your daughter and stuff, did you have any phone contact with Otha?
No, the only thing was he said that he was going to go see his daughter to bake some cupcakes or something, and that was the last time we talked.
Tell us what happens after gymnastics.
After gymnastics, we went home. She's sweaty, bathed again. I had a drink, and we went to bed.
Did there come a time where you got woken up in the middle of the night?
Yes,
Or not in the middle of the night, but in the evening, night hours?
yes.
Can you describe what happened and what would get you?
I just heard a bunch of commotion. My apartment complex, the walls are very thin, so if someone walks by or if there even a car pulls in, normally I can hear it. So I just heard a bunch of commotion, a bunch of yelling, a bunch of running backwards and forth. I thought it was maybe a fight or something going on in the parking lot. So I went to the window just to see what was going on. Couldn't really see. I went outside, and that's when I realized what was going on.
What did you see going on outside of it?
I just heard someone yelling, we need towels, we need towels. He's bleeding, we need towels. So I was like, well, I have a bunch of towels. Like, what's going on? You guys need towels. So I brought out a towel or two, and then I handed the towel to the person. It was a pedestrian, I'm guessing. And then I kind of like looked down, got scared, and ran back in my house.
Did you see any police out there at that time?
I saw a police car.
Okay. Did you stay in your house at that time?
Yes,
Did there come a time where an officer knocked on your door?
yes.
Do you remember talking to that officer?
I don't remember what was said, no.
Okay. What kind of vehicle did Wallace drive?
I don't remember what it's called, but it's an SUV.
Is it a Honda SUV?
I believe so.
Can you approach the witness, Judge?
Yes.
Maybe I'm going to show you what's marked for identification purposes as AA. Can I approach them? Can you take a look at these first self-photographs? Does that appear to be car that both of Wallace would be driving at that time?
Yes, the color looks a little bit different, I guess, from the light, but yes.
So the photograph in this picture, the lighting's off, but this does look like a good photograph.
Yes.
Do you know whose vehicle it was?
I'm not sure. I don't believe it was his, probably someone else. I'm not sure.
Are you gonna be using the?
Yes. Yes.
So how you can get it, the one camera?
I don't know, I think we pulled it.
I just. It's okay, it's okay.
It's right here.
Did it come loose?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah. I see that.
No, the video has to be restarted. Okay, it's on.
After the officer came to your door and you spoke to them, do you remember trying to call both the Wallace to try and locate it?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. May I approach the witness, Judge?
Many-
I'm going to approach and show you what's marked as states. Take a look at that, see if you can correct that now. Okay. Is this a fair and accurate depiction of the level for Walter Drive?
Yes.
And obviously, this is a screenshot from some device. You didn't take this photo, but this is the vehicle in the drive.
Yes.
And can you tell by looking at the photograph, is that the Wallace in the photograph? Judge, at this time, the state would have been states. Okay.
Without objection, admitted to second.
And now I'm showing you what's in evidence of state 7. This is the oath of Wallace vehicle.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And the person sitting in the driver's seat, that's oath of Wallace.
Yes.
Does this look like it's in the parking lot where you live in? If you can tell, I don't know if you can.
It's kind of dark, but yes.
May I approach the witness, Judge? I'm going to approach and show you what's marked as states Q. Are you able to identify who this photograph is?
Yes.
Is this for the Wallace?
Yes.
Does this time the statement movement states Q?
Without objection, admitted to second.
I'm now showing you what's marked as 8A in evidence. Is this the photograph? Can you identify who's in that photograph?
That's my baby's father, Otho Wallace.
Okay. And then in 8B, is this also on the wall?
Yes.
Approach the witness, Judge. When I approach and show you what's marked as states A, now R, I'm sorry, state R. You take a look at that. Have you listened to this CD before?
Yes.
Okay. And the voice said on there that the Wallace.
Objection, lack of foundation. Leading witness to suggest the contents of the file, it's more.
Well, regardless of the leading, can you lay a little furniture for that?
I can judge, she listened to this recording, and she's going to identify the voice on it. We're not going to do
I
that.
will rule it for now. Go ahead and finish the verdict.
Have you listened to this CD?
Yes.
How do you know you listened to this?
Because I signed it.
Okay, so
Make sure you keep up the voice on it.
I'm sorry, because I signed it.
and you dated it,
Yes.
and the voice on the CD, is that Oath of Wallace?
Yes.
That's all good.
Is that knowledge of it?
Yes.
No further questions. I'm gonna move it.
I think you.
Oh, you wanna use it? Yeah, yeah. Just.
You lived in apartment 8 with Mr. Wallace, is that correct?
With my kids. He comes over to see his kid.
Did you live there with it as of a few months? Were you living with him there?
Like I said, I live there with my kids, and he comes over to see his kid.
Have you been, were you ever residing in that apartment complex, that apartment number 8 with both Wallace? Would you characterize it as residing in that apartment?
I don't understand the question.
Would you agree that you were residing, maybe living there full-time with Wallace for 3 months as of June 23rd, 2000?
No.
Okay. Do you remember having your deposition taken on May 24th, 2022?
No.
Okay. Would you, Your Honor, may I approach? Okay. I'd like to just perhaps refresh your recollection. I'm going to direct your attention to the bottom of page 7, line 25, over to line 6 on page 8. Okay? Do you agree?
Yeah.
I'm not giving you page 7. All right. Go ahead and read. It's line 25 on page 7 to line 8. Or excuse me, line 6 on page 8.
Back in June of
You can just read yourself, man. I'm sorry, I was clear with that.
Oh.
Okay. Yes. Do you agree that the truth of the matter is back in June of 2021, you two, you and Othal, were residing together at 133 Kingston Avenue, apartment 8?
No, I probably said it wrong, but in those 3 months, he's in and out all the time.
You would agree with me that on May 24, 2022, you showed up for your deposition, right?
Yes.
I think we went in person. You remember that? We at the state attorney's office.
I don't remember.
Do you remember being sworn to tell the truth?
If I don't remember the actual situation, how could I remember that?
Okay, do you agree that the specific question that I asked you was as follows on page 7, line 25? Back in June of 2021, you two were residing together at 133 Kingston Avenue, apartment number 8. Do you agree that I accurately read the question? That I
Yes.
asked you? Okay. Would you agree with me that that's a very straightforward question?
Yes.
Okay. And your answer was yes.
Yes.
Okay. And your testimony here is different than the testimony that you provided on May 24, 2000.
Yeah, it's definitely different because that's not accurate.
So now your testimony is that you were just staying there sometimes,
Right, to see his kids. He's always in and out, traveling, doing whatever he does.
Regardless, it is the case that he was welcome in this.
Oh, absolutely.
On June 23rd.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. It wouldn't be unreasonable for him to be in that parking lot because from time to time he safe.
Right, of course.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. And you have 2 children in common with Mr. Wallace?
Yes,
He worked that day, it seems like the same hours he worked,
yeah, well, sometimes. It all depends.
but on June 23rd, y'all got off around, what, 2:30?
I got off at 2 o'clock.
And what time did you get off that day?
I do not.
And would you have gone back to the apartment with him after the work shift and had some interaction there?
No,
Okay, you 2 parted ways?
correct.
Um, And the last time you would have seen him would have been at work at McDonald's?
Correct.
And then you said you had a phone call with him prior to everything coming to light with what happened, right?
It was a text message of him letting me know that when I got back from gymnastics, he wasn't going to be there because he was going to be with his other child.
Gotcha. And was that the case when you got back? He wasn't there yet?
Correct.
Do you know approximately what time you got back?
I would say no later than 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock.
And at 5, he's not back, but that doesn't alarm you because he told you that.
Right, he let me know he wasn't going to be there.
And in terms of this particular screenshot, there's a time on the top right-hand side of the screen.
Yes,
And this is in military time, the 2050.
right.
Did you know that Mr. Wallace was in the parking lot at that time?
I did not. I was inside sleeping.
Um, And then a few moments ago, Mr. Lewis had asked you some questions about a photograph of the vehicle that Mr. Wallace was driving, right?
Yes.
Okay. You have any other questions? I'm just approaching one of the composite exhibits, and then I'm also, that hasn't been entered, it's IDAA, and then I'm also approaching the witness with what has been entered, I think.
I think previously you have identified this as being consistent with your understanding of Mr. Wallace's vehicle. Do you have your observation of the rear bolt of the vehicle?
In the picture,
Yeah.
I see one side and the other.
In terms of that, like, do you see that being photo?
Yeah.
All right, and then do you see anything on top of the vehicle that you know, kind of just seems characteristic?
That I would recognize the car.
Yeah.
What do you see on the top?
On the top, I see whatever that little triangle thing is.
And let's just go with the triangle and start there. So on,
I'm going to object. This is the province of the jury to compare the photographs to make a determination. Not Ms. Lewis is not an expert.
Bring it, and I'm merely asking for observation of photographs. Do you see the thing on the top in the spot?
No.
And how about the rear lights? Do you see the lights are different?
Yeah, they're completely different.
And how long did it take you to start the camp?
It's
Not 1 second?
in this parking lot here, if I was driving down Kingston Avenue, there would be no way for me to even know what was going on at this location if I'm driving on Kingston, right?
Correct.
And in terms of the orientation from the front of this vehicle to the apartment, can you tell the jury a little bit about how far that is?
Well, the parking lot is very small compared to where the car parks in the building. It's not really that far. The parking lot's pretty small.
And in turn, is the orientation of this vehicle such that if Mr. Wallace were to walk out, would he basically walk straight across the parking lot and enter into his unit?
Correct.
Okay. I know I've been there in the past, but just to give a little bit of a reference, is the distance between the parking lot and where you would enter into the apartments much further from where I'm standing to the wall that's behind you?
It's about the same distance. It's that small.
And there's a car that's right next to this vehicle, right? In the picture below, right? And have you parked in this parking lot?
Yes.
Okay. And is it your experience when you park in this parking lot that the distance between one car and the other is quite cramped, maybe an arm's length?
Yeah, it's very close.
Okay. And have you ever opened up your car door when there's been a car on
Yes.
the other side of you? Is it possible for you to get beyond the open car door with another car next to you?
No, it's so small that I have to tell my kids, be careful, you're gonna hit the car next to you when you open the door. Very small.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. Ma'am, if you look at this photograph right here, can you see the taillights?
No, see the front of the car.
Right, so the taillights are behind the car, right?
Yes,
Abutting the shrubbery that's all back there, that covered it up and everything back there?
yes.
Okay. And you can't see the antenna there, can you, Sam?
No, it's too dark.
Thank you. No further questions?
Ma'am, is there a traditional parking curb right behind the vehicle? You notice that in the bottom left-hand side of the,
Yes, there's like the little parking, little bump.
and then there's some space, maybe a couple of feet between the parking curb and the shrubbery?
No, there's no space.
Okay. There's not any space between this curb and the shrubbery there?
No, it's like if you step past the curb, you're gonna be in the, like hitting the tents pretty much.
And do you see anything in this particular picture that would obscure visibility as you get the passenger side of the vehicle?
No, it's quick.
Okay. If one was coming up to the passenger side of the vehicle, they would have an observation of the rear taillights that
I'm going to object. That's just speculation, Judge.
Nothing for that.
I don't have any rear reader. She's excused.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Your Honor. You don't.
I haven't decided whether we loud and clear in the microphone, please.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Joseph Michael Surf. I work for Daytona Beach Police Department.
In what capacity? What's your rank?
I'm a patrol sergeant,
How long you been with Daytona Beach PD?
a little over 21 years.
And is it all your, has your entire law enforcement career been with Daytona Beach PD?
It has.
Okay. How about walking us through a little bit the various positions you've had and what you've done in your 21 plus career as law enforcement?
Originally started in patrol, did that for about 2.5 years. I went to street crimes, which was a low-level narcotics, vice crimes thing. And then to special investigations unit, which was narcotics also, but mid to upper level stuff. And then I went to the high-intensity drug trafficking areas task force. Basically, it's a group of cities in the county, and they work upper level narcotics investigation. In 2020, I was promoted to sergeant.
So tell me, what does the sergeant with the Daytona Beach Police Department do? What are your duties and responsibilities?
Well, you'll have a platoon of officers on nights, so they're usually a little bit younger. We train them, you review the reports, supervise calls for service that they're on, assist with competent calls for service, counsel them if they need it, mentor them, try to create a positive morale for the shift.
Did you know Officer Jason Rayner?
I did.
Was he on your shift?
It was.
Were you his supervisor?
I was.
And were you his supervisor for the entire time since you became sergeant until he was shot on June 23rd, 2021?
I was.
Were you working the night that he was shot?
I was.
Were you a supervising sergeant then?
I was.
Did you have any contact with him that evening before? He was shot?
Maybe in passing. No real conversations I recall.
Okay, so you don't recall any content of any conversation,
No, sir.
correct? Okay. And talk to us a little bit about his area of responsibility, or where he was assigned and where he might wind up.
We have 8 different zones within the district, and we go from the railroad tracks to the beach. And in between, we also have the river. So we have the Ridgewood units, we call it, and then we have the beachside units. So on the Ridgewood side, on the north end, you got 56 zone, 57 zone, and 58 zone. And then, so any unit that you have, they're usually Charlie 50-something. But we also have 70 units that we use that are the more senior guys that have a little bit more empowerment to go to both sides of the river to help out on calls or to do other things.
Is that was that the situation with Officer Jason Raymond?
Yes, he was 77.
That he was free to move about in different zones?
Yeah.
And are you familiar with the area where Officer Jason Raymond was shot?
I am.
Had you been there before? Was the location known to you?
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's a high crime area. We'd recently had a rash of shootings and also a known narcotic location. So there's been complaints generated by the public in that area, along with other incidents that we respond to.
Place you needed to have a police presence?
Yes.
Would you consider the area, the parking lot where you found Officer Jason Raymond, is it secluded?
Yeah.
Not visible from the road?
No.
Little or no lighting back there? Did you consider it part of Officer Rayner's responsibility to patrol areas like that?
Absolutely.
Now, it's the high crime area, the shootings that are going on, is that something that you and your officers face typically on a daily basis?
The shootings, maybe not on a daily basis, but quite often, yes, we deal with some violent crime, probably on a daily basis.
I want to touch briefly on a boatload regarding a stolen vehicle. Are you familiar with license plate readers?
I am.
And are you familiar with how they work as far as reading license plates? And would you agree, or is it true that these license plate readers have the ability, amazing ability actually, to capture a tag number and then put it in some kind of database?
Yeah.
And did they also check that database to see if somehow that particular tag or whatever it might be was input in there for some reason?
Yes, it does.
Now, let me talk to you about that a little bit. Did you use that database, or what was your proficiency with pulling up that database and looking into it?
I was given access to it. I hadn't really learned how to use it, but I knew some of the other officers that did, and I would rely on them to help me with it.
And what about Officer Jason Raymond? Did he help you with it?
Yes,
Did he appear to know what he was doing?
he knew how to operate the system.
Objection, speculation.
Did he help?
He helped me. If I needed something, I would go to Jason if it was having to do with LPRs.
And is it your understanding the BOLO was distributed by email?
Yes.
Was it distributed in other ways too?
It was sent out through our, we call them MDTs, it's a mobile transport, it's our computer and it's the system. They were sent out through that and then also over the radio.
So it was actually broadcast over the radio? And I assume all the folks on patrol working that evening, their radios were operational?
Yes.
And was this BOLO that we were talking about, was the vehicle described?
Yes.
BOLO, it operates some kind of description.
It was given out by description over the radio, and then, you know, on the MDTs, it would just list the description of it, and then on the email is actually a photo of the back of the vehicle.
What about Officer Raynor? You said he was proficient with the LPRs in the database. What about his emails? You were a supervising sergeant. Did you have occasion to observe if he was conscientious or not about checking his emails?
He was, because oftentimes I would send out emails to them, he would respond to them. I've been with him at his vehicle when he had his emails up.
Is the purpose for sending out any BOLO to the officers so that those officers will be aware of it and on the lookout for it themselves?
Yes, actually BOLO stands for Be on the Lookout, so that's why it's being sent out. Keep an eye out for it.
So looking for a BOLO or looking for whether it's a vehicle, a missing person, whatever it is, that's what you consider that part of the within the scope of the duties and responsibilities of a police officer.
Yeah,
A good thing?
absolutely.
Seeking to prevent crime, proactive policing?
Correct.
Did there come a time when you became concerned for Officer Jason Rayner's safety? Did it have to do with the radio and him calling in? Didn't respond, is that correct?
He did not respond.
And that's a red flag, right?
Correct.
So, do you have the capability, to know where your officers are?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
There's a system called Force Watch. It's throughout the county. So all the vehicle computers have a GPS plugged into them. So on my computer, I can see where my officers' vehicles are located.
Okay. Were there efforts to reach out to Officer Rayner on the radio?
Yes, we called, there's some officers had called, and then dispatch called them again, no response. I told dispatch to put out an alert tone, which gives us radio silence, and then they do the loud to get anybody's attention in case you didn't hear it. You can hear them. And then no response.
Oh, because you said an alert tone. Does that tone, what's the purpose of that for the folks that hear? The police officers that hear?
That we're trying to locate somebody, or occasionally they can do it before a big call comes out. But the alert tone is in case, you know, you're talking to somebody, you might not hear your radio or the volume might have gone down, but you hear the beep, beep, beep. And they get your attention, like, oh, what's going on? And then you realize they'll call your call sign again, and you're like, oh, they're talking to me on code 4.
Were you able to determine a likely location for Officer Jason, right?
Yes, from the Force Watch system, it appeared that his vehicle was behind the building at 133 Kingston.
Sorry, what was this?
Force Watch.
Force?
Force.
Just briefly, Do officers, police officers, you, your squad, your crew, your platoon, do y'all have the capability of talking on the radio in the vehicle itself?
Yes.
And also on foot?
Yes.
And that's with would that be a portable radio that you're equipped with?
Yes.
Is that like the one you've got there on you're wearing there?
Yes, sir.
And is that a microphone on your shoulders?
It is.
Okay, and if you want to transmit, with that, you're outside of your car, interacting, whatever it is you're doing, you want to transmit, do you use your hand in order to transmit?
Yes, you'd come up and press the button on the side, hold it down, you hear a beep, and then you broadcast.
You have to hold it down until you
Correct.
broadcast.
Yes.
Where were you when you heard or you got concerned about Officer Jason Rayner and you started this Force Watch or looked in that application to look at it? Where were you?
I was at the Beachside Precinct handling some of my admin duties on my computer. I was just on the other side of the river.
Okay, the precinct is like a substation or an office for the police department?
Yes.
It's not the headquarters,
No.
but it's for that area or vicinity?
Yes, for District 2.
And so what did you do at that point, Sergeant?
When I saw where he possibly was, I put that out over the radio to tell the guys that were responding, with everyone heading that way. And then I went immediately to my vehicle and started that direction.
Did you get that?
Yes.
So, once you arrive, what's your mission or your goal? What are you trying to accomplish?
To find out, to make sure he's okay if he needs assistance. We were on our way there to help an officer.
Okay, and what happened when you got?
On the way there, one of the officers had transmitted that we had a gunshot wound to the head. I arrived. There were 2 officers on scene. I was talking to them, trying to get whatever information they had from him, because he was still talking to us somewhat, and trying to come up with a suspect. But at the same time, I was more worried about getting rescue there. So it's simultaneous, both things we needed to have happen to get him to the hospital.
I know this might sound like a silly or stupid question, but that was very traumatic was that very traumatic for you, what you were witnessing?
It's definitely a traumatic event for everyone involved.
So, did you try to clear a way for rescue to be able to get into this area?
Yes, I put it out over the radio to make sure that because a lot of times when we come in and we get to a call, everybody's quick to get there and we're parking our cars everywhere. And we have to go back out to move the vehicle so we can let the emergency personnel in. It's just usually how it happens. I was quick to put it over the radio, make sure it's clear. We wanted to get them in there quick. And then told another officer to go out there and also make sure that they could get in there unabated by vehicle.
Okay, and then what about once Officer Jason Rayner was taken and put in the ambulance, did you help clear away an escort, so to speak, so that he could get to the hospital as soon as possible?
Yeah, we told evac that we would block off the intersection, so another officer and I would go ahead of rescue and block off the north side and the south side traffic, so they didn't have to slow down, they could go through and then piggyback again and head up in front of them so they can make it to the hospital.
And evac, that's the ambulance service?
Yes.
Oh, an evac? Okay. Now, there's another important thing needs to be done at this point in time, right? Now that you know that Officer Jason Rayner has been shot in the head, and you're trying to figure out what happened, right?
Yes.
So what do you do?
Well, at the time, we were trying to get into his phone because we have the Axon cameras that are attached to our chest. You don't have, the individual that it's assigned to has access to it through a phone app. You can go in there and actually view your videos while you're writing your report, or that you can put in the case number and things like that. So initially we were trying to get to unlock Jason's phone. We weren't able to do that, so I sent the Axon camera with Officer Sizemore to the precinct and that's where you're able to dock it. We have a secure closet. Once it's docked, that uploads it to evidence.com. So while we were doing this, I was assuming that that video was going to be uploaded, and then I wanted to get to that to see what we could find out.
So you gave the body cam to Silent.
Yeah.
Silent Moore took it to Beachside.
At precinct.
She docked it. What does that mean? Is she just plugging it in or what? What does that mean, docked?
There's like banks of almost like a battery, maybe for like a power tool or something. You just plug it in, and then the light comes on it, and you can see that it's uploaded.
So it's uploading in children.
Yes, also.
Okay. And you said it's a secure area. What do you mean?
It's secure to get into the precinct, but then also there's a closet. It's upstairs. You have to use your key card to open that to get access to it. And then you have each platoon's got a different section for their cameras.
Is this something that's done every night at the end of shift, typically with the officers in their body worn cameras?
It is.
It's you viewed that video.
It did.
So there was a video.
Yeah.
Where did you view it?
Initially, when I was at the hospital, I couldn't get service, so then I went to our main station at 129 Valor, and I was able to access it from there.
Let me stop you. When you say you didn't get service, that means you didn't get the internet?
Correct.
You have to be on the internet in order to tap into evidence.com?
Correct.
So you did that?
Yep.
And you watched the video?
Yeah.
Was it helpful in identifying a suspect?
Yeah.
So what did you do? You watched the video. What was it you did then?
Everyone was on the radio. They were all trying to figure out what kind of suspect we had. So as soon as I could get to a frame where I could get a picture of something, and I started with the vehicle, I would email that out to department-wide and also to the Volusia County Crime Center, so they could send it out further than that. And then as I went, I took a picture of the suspect and did that also. Meanwhile, asking if CID could assist with downloading the whole video. I couldn't email the whole clip. It wouldn't email.
Right, it's like too big of a file or something. Is that
Correct.
right? So, but you were getting pictures out of the car, is that right?
The vehicle and the suspect.
And the suspect. Do you know if somebody used those pictures to help identify the defendant in this case?
I know they were used to identify him.
Okay. Your Honor, may we approach for a moment? Yes.
Well, stop on behalf of the recess. If you need a paper for you, the lawyers and I have also work to do on the subject. If you need it, we'll talk about it. All rise and jury. Okay, jury's out. Go ahead and call for the evidence.
Sarge, have you, in your 21 plus career, how many times did you say you've come in contact with marijuana?
Hundreds, maybe over 1,000, like a lot.
Okay. Are officers trained in how to recognize marijuana?
They are.
Tell me what you're looking for to try and identify or recognize what could be marijuana.
There's the sight of it, and also there's got a very unique pungent aroma to it.
Okay, so describe what you say visually. What are you looking for?
We usually describe it as a green leafy substance, but there's also buds and stems and seeds.
Okay. And as far as aroma, burning or non-burning or both?
Both of them do. The burnt marijuana obviously has a stronger smell to it.
Or is it, you're the sergeant that was in charge of this squad you testified to. Did the officers that you supervised have training in the recognition and observation of marijuana?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that marijuana that a police officer is going to routinely come in contact with marijuana during the course of doing their job every day?
Yes.
Is that true for you?
Yes.
Yeah. I think remember part of say that marijuana was visible, which is what
Your Honor, there is the video which hasn't been introduced yet into evidence. And this is disputed, of course, but there is what we believe to be in the defendant's hand, what appears to be a marijuana cigarette. Now, they could argue something else, but we believe that, and we believe that based on that plus, as we had said earlier, I think your ruling was we couldn't talk about, what's marijuana regarding, the Snellville search warrant.
Right.
But we believe that would be relevant because it's an additional layer of possible suspicion once Officer Rayner made contact with the defendant. And if you can see, while I'm sure they're going to dispute it being marijuana, I think you heard in their opening statement, I think it's fair game to at least make the argument. They make theirs, we make ours.
well, how do we roll?
Yes.
All right, I guess in terms of what's before the court right now on a proffer, my objection would be that it's completely irrelevant. I don't know where we're gonna go. There's not been a demonstrative proffer to the court or a portion of the video where there's gonna be any particular identification. There's been no testimony from certain search about any contemporaneous conversation on June 23rd about marijuana. So what we anticipate to be the case is 2.5 years after the shooting, then marijuana becomes a factor in the case, and they're trying to backfill in that, oh yeah, it must have been marijuana. But there's no real-time memorialization of any marijuana being suspected. There's nothing before the court to determine whether he's going to testify.
Your Honor,
I don't know.
Your Honor, may I briefly respond? Today, right now with Sergeant Searce, all I'm asking is to discuss how they might recognize marijuana. We have other witnesses, and when we introduce the actual video, then you can see visually what we're talking about.
Well, I'd rather have you come back, talk about this, look at video, and stuff like that. Have a better,
Yes, sir.
better feel for whether or not they, what you're trying to claim is marijuana. There's some sort of basis to it.
Yes.
Without knowing exactly what it is that you're going to show, I can't determine whether or not it is relevant. As of right now, there is no relevancy because there's nothing.
Yes.
In the record that indicates it will bear a lot allegedly on the defendant's case.
Yes, sir.
So for now, I'm not going to exclude it,
Yes, sir.
but I'll prevent it from using it until it becomes more relevant for me to talk about it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
15 minutes. All right.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness. Show the defense counsel. Your Honor, this has been marked for identification purposes as State Exhibit I. Sergeant, do you recognize this photograph?
I do. It's Officer Jason Rayner. Officer Jason Rayner.
Is this a fair and accurate depiction of the Officer Jason Rayner that you knew?
It is.
Your Honor, this I'm going to have to be able to move it in.
No,
We got a picture, we live
See, Your Honor, we oppose.
from that one, yes.
Yes.
We got a picture, we live on- It's
10 minutes.
for examination.
Good afternoon.
It looked like they underwent considerable amount of training in your 21 years of law enforcement, correct?
Yes.
One of the most important tools of a law enforcement officer is the powers of observation. Do you agree with that?
The what?
Powers of observation.
Sure.
And part of your training, it's ongoing, is to develop how to discern between what would be potentially innocent conduct or what could be criminal conduct, right?
As far as being part of it, yes.
You're trying to hone those powers of perception so that you can key in on something that might lead to an arrest or a further investigation. Do you agree with that?
I do.
And that's what BOLAs are used to assist in, correct? You would agree that it's equally as important for law enforcement to train their powers of observation so that they do not overextend and capture innocent folks that might be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Say again?
Do you think it's just as important to use your powers of observation so as to not unnecessarily involve someone who's innocently looking like a suspect or in an area where there was a recent call for service?
I don't know how you'd be able to determine if someone is or isn't.
Well, let's say, for example, you're familiar with this crime bulletin that went out, right?
Yes.
And the crime bulletin talked about the vehicle, this gray SUV, right?
Gray Honda CRV, you think?
All right. And would you agree that based upon this information that any black female or black male in their 20s would be subject to seizure and interrogation in the city?
No.
Okay. And that's because it would be unreasonable to just capture every black female and black male in their 20s, right?
Correct.
In fact, an appropriate thing to do would be to look at the specific information in the BOLO and apply that to the observations, right? You would want to take in, you wouldn't just pull over.
You're not saying that you weren't mentioning if they were in a vehicle, right? You're just saying a black male or black female anywhere?
Right. That would be inappropriate to just pull over every black or black male or female in their 20s to look for the stolen vehicle, right?
Well, if they're in a vehicle that appears that it could be that vehicle, then you would investigate that.
Right. And the question becomes how close to that description is a reasonable pursuit or an unreasonable pursuit of that vehicle. Do you agree with that?
As far as what's reasonable and what's unreasonable?
You're trying to use as many details as possible to determine whether it's reasonable to pursue this car further, correct?
Yes.
And for instance, if an officer was going and looking for this 2014 CRV and they plainly saw that the vehicle was an HRV, it would be unreasonable to pull that car over.
If you knew the difference.
So the point is, as a law enforcement officer, it's important to try to discern between the specific information so that you don't capture someone or hassle someone that's not worthy of suspicion.
Yes, and I also know that sometimes bolos are close if you're just getting it out through the air or whatever, so they're not always 100% accurate, but if you know the difference, then yes.
And you train your officers to make sure that they are reasonable when they're approaching citizens, right?
Yes.
You're not telling them, hey, if you're in the ballpark of a description, go ahead and stop it, right?
Your Honor, would object to that characterization in the ballpark. I think he has specific questions.
It would be inappropriate if you learned that one of your subordinates was engaging in a practice where he was just being reckless with the information in a bolo and pulling over everybody that got close to the person, right?
Well, you're saying got close, and then you're saying reckless. I wouldn't put them together. If it's something close, and I believe that they're acting in good faith, then yes, that it would be okay to contact them.
So the issue is, how can you determine what's close and what you should disregard, That's what on the scene observations come down to the blunt.
Yes.
Did you investigate any portion of this case? Like, were you tasked with investigating anything, or were you just more of a first responder?
First responder, and then once the video portion was sent out, I was done.
In terms of police and citizen encounters, they're governed by policy. Like, there's policy about how a law enforcement officer or Daytona Beach is supposed to interact with members of the public.
Yeah, as far as your demeanor and, you know.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the relevance.
Can we approach on this? Sir, you mentioned a policy about being courteous to members of the community,
Yes.
and that involves advising a citizen, if practical, about the reasons for the contact, the reasons for them being detained.
It's not spelled out in any sort of way like that.
There's no policy at all that talks about giving a citizen a reason or explanation for an officer contact.
You reach to a point where they're detained or not detained, you know, you're already at that point where you're going to tell them why they're detained. But just coming up to talk to them, to somebody, you don't have to automatically just say what you're thinking.
Understood. If someone gets pulled over, are you suggesting that there's no policy that requires an officer to advise the citizen about the reason for them being pulled over?
Now, I don't know if that's in policy or not, but it is good practice if you stop somebody on a traffic stop, to inform them of the reason of the stop.
And similarly, would you agree that there are times when it would be good practice if you're encountering a member of the public outside of a traffic stop to advise them of what you're looking for, the reason why you're contacting?
It would be on the time as far as how you feel officer safety wise. A lot of times you don't want to point out something that you see that may be potentially something that may lead to an arrest or could be dangerous. You don't want the suspect to know basically your cards at that point until you can safely proceed.
And I think what you're getting at is that it's not unreasonable for some people to perhaps be nervous or on edge when they're going
Yeah, some people are nervous.
and also what you just described would be a kind of de-escalation, right? You don't want to go in front of a person right away. You want to have a more impactful response.
It depends on the situation, really. I mean, if you have to take immediate action, then you take immediate action. But I know it's good practice for officer safety wise. If you see something in a car, I may not point that out to that person right then and there that I see something, because I know I might need someone else to help come and detain the person, or, you know, the fight could start, or they could flee, and those kind of things.
And obviously, when you're arriving up to the point where you need to determine what information to give, you've already processed the situation and had time to reflect on it before you're getting involved, right? You're having some time before you're contacting somebody to see if they match the BOLO, to see their demeanor, to assess which tactic you're going to use in your contact.
Not all. It flows as far as, like, if you're getting out to talk to somebody, I don't, you know, depends on what you see, what you're picking up, maybe what you smell, maybe what you hear, and things like that. You can't, there's no, not like a robot where I proceed to this point and I must say this. You're still processing maybe what you're seeing.
You're familiar with the term high-risk traffic stop?
Yes.
That is one that involves guns, right?
We'd call it a felony stop, yes.
Multiple officers would be involved.
Yes.
It would be against the best practice to go and make a possible encounter with a high-risk vehicle alone and without any notice to your fellow officers.
No, not if you just stumble across something. You got to take action. I mean, if you think there's a felony in progress, if you can safely make that time to get other officers there, then, and to tactically approach a vehicle, then of course that would be something you can do if you have that time.
Sure. I think the operative term there that's used would be, there's a difference between you stumble upon something versus you have some opportunity to observe it and then perhaps call for dispatch or make a different
What I'm saying is this, if you're driving up and all of a sudden it's dark and you're seeing like, oh, that vehicle looks familiar. So now you're into investigation mode, to kind of like, what, I don't know what it was.
Sure. And you would agree with me that there's no possible way that when Officer Rayner was driving on Kingston Avenue, that he saw Othel Wallace in the parking lot behind Kingston Avenue?
I couldn't say what?
You can't say that when Jason Rayner was driving on Kingston Avenue on June 23rd, 2021, that he saw Mr. Wallace's vehicle from Kingston Avenue.
I don't know when he saw, like where it was parked, and if that was where he was on Kingston, no, you wouldn't probably see it. You couldn't see it. It's all blocked off.
So
But if he, I can't say that he didn't see the car pull in, you know, that's what I'm saying.
do you have any information that would suggest that Officer Rayner saw the car pull in?
No, but that's what I'm explaining.
You would agree with me that there was no 911 call placed by any member of the community complaining of anything that Othel Wallace did on June 23rd, 2021?
I don't believe there was any calls.
There was no 911 call by any person in Daytona Beach complaining of criminal activity or suspicious activity at one
Your Honor, I'm going to object that he might be outside the scope of his knowledge. Any call at any time that night, that community.
You can ask her if you know me.
I'm not aware of the background and who knew the defendant and who didn't. I can just say that night when it all happened, I don't recall, and I don't remember seeing one, that there was a call there for that.
Do you believe that the Daytona Beach Police Department did a full and thorough investigation into the speeding case scenario?
I do?
Your Honor objects.
Okay. And in connection with that full and thorough investigation, you would agree with me that the basis of the encounter is a central role to everything that we're talking about here.
The basis of the
Yeah.
encounter.
Why Rayner went back there, right? Is that an important issue? Why Rayner went back there?
It's part of the issue, yes.
And just so we're clear, there's no 911 call complaining of Othel. There's no 911 call complaining of anything at Kingston Avenue, right?
No, but there had been plenty of complaints in that area.
Okay. Can you point to a specific call that took place on June 23rd, 2021, to which Jason Rayner was responding to that led him to the back parking lot?
No, I don't know why he was back there at that moment.
All right. You're not familiar of any citizen lagging Officer Rayner down and telling him to go back and make contact with Othel Wallace?
I'm not aware of that.
You're not familiar with any facts that would give Jason Rayner probable cause to detain Othel
I'm
Wallace?
going to object to the statement.
May we approach? Were you familiar with the existence of this, be on the lookout for the stolen vehicle prior to the situation with Officer Rayner?
I was aware of the vehicle, yes.
And you would agree with me that there are distinguishing characteristics between the issue, the vehicle at issue in the Bolo and the vehicle that Othel Wallace was driving?
I don't know the differences. There's so many new cars and they're similar in so many ways. So I could easily get them mixed up. I know they end up being two different vehicles. I don't know how similar they are.
And you would agree with me that the best practice would be for an officer to use as many of the powers of observation as possible to discern between whether a car that was going to be approached was the Bolo vehicle or was not the Bolo vehicle?
If you're just making contact to see what you may have, I mean, the vehicle was backed in. I believe that's the major difference between the vehicles versus what the front of the vehicle is.
And is it your testimony that the vehicle being backed in made it absolutely impossible to distinguish between the Bolo vehicle and the vehicle that Othel Wallace?
I don't know if you could say impossible. Like I said, I don't know the vehicles well enough, and I don't know.
Are you familiar with any person within the Daytona Beach Police Department that investigated the reason for Rayner going and making contact with Othel Wallace?
I don't know all the details of the investigation.
You mentioned before that when you came upon scene, you made contact with some officers that had been the first responder, right?
Yes,
One of those officers was Amanda Dickens.
yes.
You agree with me that Amanda Dickens at no point in time told you hey, Rayner just said he was going to look for that fresh signal.
I don't know what she testified to or if that's what he said to her.
I'm sorry if you misunderstood my question. My question is, let me back up. Do you have a recollection of when you first got into the parking lot on June 23rd, 2020?
When she was there, she was tending to her friend that was been shot. So no, we didn't discuss anything about a vehicle.
So before, when Mr. Flores was asking you questions, I believe you testified something about you had contact with the officer and they gave you information, right?
They were trying to get information from him.
And you asked Amanda Dickens what information that she had pertinent to the situation.
Not directly to her, no. I was on scene.
Would it be unreasonable for a law enforcement officer possessing information about their fallen colleague to relay that to somebody like yourself in the situation?
You're talking about reasonable when her friend and zone partner was had just been shot in the ground and was in the shape that he was in. I don't know what we consider reasonable of what her response would be about anything.
I think that's fair. Are you trained as a law enforcement officer to deal with high-stress situations?
We use simulations and stuff to try to recreate them, but it's not the same.
So do you think, is there a lesser standard that an officer is held to if they're in a stressful situation as opposed to a non-stressful situation?
That's just plain human nature and how your brain works. You have fight, flight, or freeze, and some of your forebrain can start to take over in some of these situations. But where once you calm down, you can think clearly again.
But we can be in agreement that Amanda Dickens never told you anything about this Jason Rayner going to look for a stolen vehicle.
I don't recall that conversation there.
Are you familiar with any subsequent report that Amanda Dickens drafted memorializing that statement?
I don't.
And you sent out the photographs obtained from the axon, and then you didn't have any other further involvement. Is that correct?
Not that I recall, no.
Just a second. No, sir.
Thank you very much. Any witness in your statement?
We're subject to recall. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please take a moment to introduce yourself to the public hearing?
My name is Sergeant James Maher, M-A-H-E-R.
And where are you?
I work for the City of Daytona Beach Police Department.
How long have you been on Daytona Beach, Peter?
14 years since 2000.
Did you have any prior law enforcement experience?
No, sir.
Prior career has been with Daytona Beach Police?
Correct.
Any military experience?
Yes, I was in the U.S. Army.
How long were you in the Army?
3 years.
Walk us through, educate us about the different roles you've had from when you started to where you are now with the Daytona Beach Police.
So initially when I started, I was a patrol officer. I ended up on a bicycle unit, which is a proactive unit on bicycles. I went from there to the crime suppression team, which is commonly referred to as like a street crimes type unit, prostitution, narcotics. From there, I transitioned to the investigation side. I was a property crimes detective and worked my way up to homicide. I was a homicide detective. I worked for the higher level narcotics unit after, the special investigations unit, and a violent criminal apprehension team, which is a kind of like a fugitive unit and CST type unit. For a short period of time, I was cross-sworn as a U.S. Marshal during the fugitive side of it. And pretty much the entire time, not quite all 14 years, I think it's 12 years now, I've also been on SWAT.
What sort?
SWAT is Special Weapons and Tactics. It's a unit designed to handle high-risk situations, whether it's a search warrant deemed high risk, not all search warrants, barricaded subjects, hostage situations, things of that nature.
Did you mention CST or crime suppression?
I did, sir.
What is the purpose of that?
The crime suppression team's purpose is within its name to suppress crime. It's a proactive unit that utilizes crime statistics, typically from CompStat, which is a meeting that we have weekly, to identify crime trends and try to curb the trend.
Kind of keeping an eye on the community and where crime's happening,
Correct.
and so that you can allocate resources to those areas that need it because of the crime occurring.
Correct. That would be the idea of CompStat.
Were you a patrol sergeant?
I was. At some point, I was promoted to sergeant. I went back to patrol for 6 months, and then sergeant of crime suppression team, and then sergeant of violent criminal apprehension team.
How long you been a sergeant?
4 years. I've been a sergeant for 4 years now.
Okay, and part of your duties as sergeant, you train other officers?
Yes.
Are you familiar with proactive policing model?
Yes.
What is that?
Proactive policing means engaging in policing, looking for crimes that are occurring, keeping them from occurring, instead of the reactive side of it, which would be more like a fire department, if you will, wait for a call, then respond.
So you're not out there waiting for somebody to flag you down and say, hey, we need you.
No. No, not on VCAT or CST, no.
Okay, so to talk about CompStat a little bit more, you said you look at crime trends. Can you be a little bit more specific about what y'all look?
So, as far as CompStat goes, it's a bi-weekly meeting, but also weekly is a staff meeting. It's pretty much the same thing. We'll go over that period of time, whether it's that 1 week or that 2 week period of all crimes that occurred within the city. It's for accountability purposes as well. All the command staff is there from the chief down, including the district captains, and so that everybody's on the same page. Everybody understands where these crime trends may be, and then each unit is held accountable, whether it's the criminal investigation division on where they are on a certain crime that occurred, ECAT, what we're doing to curb the trend, or patrol to step up patrols in the area.
Were you working tonight that also ran?
I was.
In what capacity? What were you doing?
I was the crime suppression team sergeant.
Okay. Did you have any contact with Officer Ray?
No, not that night, no.
But you were on the same shift?
No, so I wasn't on the same shift. I was working the same night. Patrol works different shifts than crime suppression. I was a completely different unit.
Okay. What area were you working?
That night I was what's called District 1. So Daytona is broken, as far as law enforcement goes, into two separate districts, East District 2 and West District 1. There's railroad tracks that run north and south through the city. I was working west in District 1. Jason was working east in District 2.
I want to talk to you a little bit about earlier in the evening before Officer Ray was were you aware of a bolo about a stolen vehicle on the city?
Yes, I was.
And how did you become aware of it?
Through a bolo that was issued through city email.
Okay. And at some point before Officer Ray was shot, did you actually spot what you believe might be there?
Yes, I did.
Where were you?
West International Speedway Boulevard.
Okay. And so what did you do?
So the vehicle was slightly ahead of us. It was a silver Honda. I knew that there was a silver Honda SUV stolen with a paper tag. Positioned my vehicle to the point where I could see the rear tag. It was not the tag. It was a California tag. So I didn't do anything. It wasn't the stolen car.
And that Volvo had the tag number, didn't it?
It did.
And so you were able to actually see the tag and determine it wasn't a stolen vehicle, correct?
Correct.
So what you do then?
I don't remember.
Road patrol or work?
Nothing with that vehicle. Correct.
So did there come a time when you became aware that there might be some concern for Officer Jason?
Yes.
And talk about that a little.
So as I spoke about before, Daytona is broken into two different districts. It's also two separate radio channels, primary radio channels that we use. They patch the channels together, which usually means something is happening. I also have a secondary radio that I use that talks around just my unit, so we're not tying up primary police channels. My unit started scrambling and headed towards that area, and I still hadn't been 100% sure what happened. I went to the area. I saw a patrol officer on a perimeter somewhere in the area of Madison and Ridgewood, and I asked him, "What are we working?" And that's when he told me there was an officer down, officer shot.
Okay, so at that point, what was going through your mind? What did you do?
Going back, I mean, at that point, all I was thinking is, let's secure this perimeter. Let's make sure that we get dogs on the ground, that people inside, give us our best chance possible to catch this person without anybody else getting hurt.
Okay, and so, that what you did?
Yes.
Okay. Did you, at that night, were you involved later, involving another Honda CRV?
Yeah, so.
Honda vehicle?
Correct. I don't know if it was a CRV or HRV. Later on, as information began to come out, the BOLO was given for a silver Honda SUV. I started looking for a silver Honda SUV for the person that shot Jason, and I found a silver Honda SUV backed into a driveway with the lights on. As soon as I saw the vehicle began revving its engine, and somebody came running from the inside of the house where it was backed into and yelling, and I don't remember exactly what they're saying, but something along the lines of "my babies." The vehicle then took off, past my police vehicle, which was marked, and I engaged the attempt to traffic stop the vehicle. I ended up in a pursuit, believing it was the vehicle that had involved in the shooting.
So at this point, you think you might have the suspect who shot off of Jason Range?
At that point, I was convinced. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Based on the description or based on the photograph that you had?
No, I didn't have a photograph. There was a BOLO given over the radio. I didn't actually have a photograph of anything at this point.
No, you were going by the description.
Correct.
Okay. Did you make contact? What happened? Give us what happened with this vehicle. Did it stop eventually?
Not willingly, but it stopped. It stopped eventually. It ended up in a police pursuit. I immediately notified all surrounding law enforcement that I thought I had found the Honda. It was fleeing from me, that I was pursuing him. We fled through what we call 45 zone at Daytona Beach, which is the northern end of Daytona Beach, through a lot of residential back roads at a lot of high rates of speed. Eventually, we started working our way towards an area of Nova Road, which is more commercial and businesses area. The vehicle slowed down to turn into a Checkers or restaurant parking lot. I hit the vehicle from behind, disabling the vehicle. Occupants of the vehicle began running. We captured them, and it then was determined this was actually the stolen car that I was thinking about earlier, not the shooting vehicle.
Now, you had mentioned that you worked with the crime suppression team, you're the sergeant, and also worked with SWAT.
Correct.
Are you involved in training your officer as well?
I am.
Okay. And what's your goal in training the officer?
To accomplish our job in the most professional and safe way possible.
And what is your?
Our job at the end of the day is to make sure that Daytona Beach is safe.
Were you familiar with 133 Kingston in that area?
Yes, the 100 block of Kingston I'm familiar with.
And why is that?
So Kingston, since I told you about 45 zone, this is 41 zone. This is also on the north end of the city by Ridgewood, towards the river. This is a high crime, high narcotics, high prostitution area. An area I was definitely and still am familiar with almost daily.
Okay. And when you're faced with a high crime, high drug area, how does proactive policing become involved in?
So, especially in high crime areas, the proactive end is what tries to return quality of life to an area that's having an issue. Proactive policing it's such a broad term.
How do you employ in your duties with your fellow officers at the Daytona Police Community?
So as far as proactivity goes, if I'm trying to curb an issue, a broad issue, one of my favorite accuracy by saturation or saturation method, which is when I bring my unit to a specific area with an issue and we enforce every violation they can find, whether it's a tint violation, a stop bar violation, a speeding violation, whatever it may be. We find that, in my opinion, it's like 5% of the population causes 99% of the crime. So if we do 100 traffic stops, we meet, and this is, again, my numbers, my opinions, we meet 95 individuals who are good law-abiding citizens. We create contacts. We put lights in the area deterring crime. And then we have that 5 or 10 that, are up to criminal activity that we are able to engage at that point.
Yeah, we'll look at it.
Yes.
Permission to approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honor, I've got what I believe to be Statesville for identification purpose. This is just a part of the exhibit. We just need to take a moment for
All right.
You reckon?
I do.
How do you reckon?
So this is the vehicle that I pursued. This is the stolen vehicle that I pursued, believing that it might have been the shooting vehicle.
Okay, that was kind of at the end of the evening, after you had seen a vehicle that you thought was a stolen vehicle and it wasn't. And then this time you saw a vehicle you thought was the shooter's vehicle, but it was actually the stolen vehicle. I don't know, did I get it right? Is that right?
I'm sure you did. I'll just reiterate because initially in the daytime I saw a silver, gray, whatever Honda on Speedway Boulevard. I knew about a stolen one. I got behind it. It was a California tag, not a Florida paper tag. I left it alone because it wasn't a stolen vehicle. Jason was shot. Bolo was issued for a silver gray Honda. I found a silver gray Honda, fled from me, chased it. It was the stolen car, not. This is the stolen car.
Are these fair and accurate representations of that vehicle?
Yes.
Your Honor, that may be in there.
Any objection? Yeah, you know, without objection, it will be admitted as evidence.
And Your Honor, I'm like Sergeant, so I need a little help. We're going to put them on, with your permission, publish it to you. Okay?
You want to get him on?
Yeah, this was at the, what did you call it, the Checkers or something?
Yes, sir. This is at the Checkers where the vehicle became disabled.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
We'll need to take into it.
Yes, we'll do that then. You need to.
Good afternoon, sir.
So you knew this man in the building guys, okay?
Yeah, I knew him pretty well.
When the day of June 23rd, you did not see him, right?
No, not that I remember. I don't remember the last time I saw him.
You had a conversation with him that day?
No.
You had no idea why he went back behind 133 Kingston Avenue?
No.
Did you start, you Mr. Reamer's practices as a patrol officer?
Fairly well. I think I was his sergeant for, back when I was on patrol, I was his sergeant for, I want to say less than 6 months, but 6 months is a good.
And would you classify Mr. Reamer as being proactive or what was that?
Yes, Jason was proactive. He did.
And then on the 23rd, the only thing you did was after one was stolen vehicle from previous.
So it wasn't the only thing I did all day long, but as far as what we were talking about, yes, that's what.
You searched around, but you didn't find anything.
I didn't find any evidence that night. I did, help with the perimeter, go to a location south of Daytona.
Yeah. One of the photos, which one of the evidence was since then? Was the
Correct.
And then we had another one that was marked, so it wasn't in the green evidence, but the identification, but was this space A3. Right?
Yes, sir.
Did you see any differences between the evidence?
Yes. So this is me assuming, because I wasn't here to this photograph. I'm assuming this is the shooting of Wallace's vehicle, outcoming bag, and this is the stolen car without the bumper.
Yeah. And you see the difference between the rear door, the door?
Yes.
So
the, I don't remember what it's called, the one with the California tag has no rear door handle, and the stolen car has a rear handle on the car, or door on.
And the area at 133 Kingston Ave is a high crime area?
It is.
And you said that you like to go into saturation to pulling a lot of people over for various reasons.
So saturation really, the way, I have 6 officers, I think it is, 7 officers that work for me. We work in a small group. In other words, not necessarily, I'm not going to say we're going to go to Kingston, the 100 block of Kingston, but we'll go to the 41 zone, that general area, and do a lot of stops, a lot of interactions, lots of lights in the area. That way we're there if somebody needs backup, but also it disperses any potential crime.
You're out making contact. Look, most of that saturation, are you pulling people over, you're making contact with people? Is there a lot of just going up and saying, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? Oh, yeah.
So consensual encounters happen. Yeah, absolutely. I would, most of the time, it really depends. I mean, it really depends. I wish I could give you an answer on statistics, but it really depends on the situation, whether we're making consensual contact or, this is a traffic stop with reasonable suspicion.
Well, you're explaining what a consensual encounter is.
Yeah, absolutely. So consensual, as a law enforcement officer,
So, you made what you just determined, what you just called consensual encounter.
yes.
And what's the, and then if it's not a consensual encounter, then pulling somebody over for probable cause of reasonable suspicion.
Correct.
And when you pull somebody over for one of those reasons, probable cause of reasonable suspicion, you have your lights on.
Yes, to activate the stop.
But in your words, is consent.
So anytime it's consensual, I even teach my officers purposely not to block the person and not turn their lights on. It's consensual.
And have you been in the location of 133 Kingston recently, from June 20, around the time?
I don't know that I was in that exact parking lot, but that general area, yeah, absolutely.
When it occurs as consent, come up and meet with person.
So anytime it's consensual, I even teach my officers purposely not to block the person and to not turn their lights on. It's consensual.
And have you been in the location?
I'm sorry, one more time.
When you went to Georgia, were you there when Mr. Wallace was there?
So I was there, I was present, I wasn't on the compound, I was just outside of the compound.
At some point, did you and police officer Cassidy contact Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Let's, thank you very much for the
Subject to reflect to
step out. They call you next week.
Yes, sir.
You'll see.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi,
Hi, will you please introduce yourself and theory and spell your last name good for us?
my name is Mary Toledo. Last name's T's and Tom, Alluto.
You're working in Daytona Beach, which department are you on?
Currently, no.
Retired?
I did. Thank you.
Tell us how long you worked in the Daytona Beach Police Department.
22 years.
What sort of capacity you work here?
I started off in patrol. I moved to the bicycle unit for about 12 years. I was also on motors, crime scene, and I finished my career as a detective.
Was that a detective that you need in crime unit or about
As general,
You bring to your attention now, are you still working in the Daytona Beach Police Department on June 23rd, 2021?
I was.
What capacity did you work on that day?
Actually, I was at home and I got called out.
What was your job assignment during that time you were there?
Oh, I was in general CID.
Shadow effect, right?
Correct.
And what is CID?
Criminal Investigation Division.
What happened? Were you like on call or why did you get called that day?
I got called. Well, I got called by one of the supervisors that an incident had took place and that they needed some assistance.
How long did it take you to get from your residence to, I guess, you know, where you went to?
Yeah, to Kingston.
How long did it take you to get dressed? I don't know,
I probably was there within 30 minutes, not less.
when you arrived, you heard a lot of testimony, but what did you observe about the scene?
When I got to the scene, Officer Rayner had already left. At that point, the scene had been roped off, and I had made contact with my supervisor at the time to find out, I kind of got just a basic call, just get dressed and get here kind of thing, and I'll tell you what's going on when you get here. So when I got there, I spoke with the supervisor. He said that, an officer had been shot, and we were still working on trying to identify the suspect.
When you say the scene was roped off, what does that mean?
It's taped off and basically under Daytona Beach's control, the area, so that nobody can just freely walk in and out of there.
Is that sort of evidence in the scene clarity?
Correct.
What were you assigned to do when you got there by the supervisor?
Basically do another canvass of the apartment complex, make sure that we didn't miss anybody that may have seen something, make sure that anybody that could have seen something whether it be important or not important, that we spoke to them.
So I understand what canvas means. Can you explain to lay people's terms, what that means?
Canvas is going to be just knocking on doors in the area and just saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what has happened. This is the time frame that it happened. Did you see anything before, after, during? Just going right down the list of anything in that immediate area, talking to anybody there.
Were you assigned to do that at 133 Kingston with the apartments there?
I was.
Did you make contact the apartment for me for any photos?
I did.
How many contact did you have conversation with her?
I did.
Your conversation, were you provided any information like her that led you to bring a photograph?
Yes.
What name did you leave?
She gave the name Othel Wallace.
What did you do at that point? Did you bring a photograph?
I did.
Did you show her that photograph?
I did.
Based on your, police work, your civil, and while you're talking to Ms. Lewis over during that time, did there become more information provided when they put a picture of the individual who was involved with this, shooting off of there?
Yes.
Were you able to make any comparison and kind of put two and two together?
Yes.
While you were talking to Ms. Lewis, at some point, did you speak her get a text with the photograph on the phone?
Yes. A group text message was sent out. I believe the police department released a snapshot of the suspect from Officer Rayner's camera. They gave it to the apartment complex management, and the management company sent out a mass text to all the residents, basically saying, hey, this is the suspect of the incident tonight. Does anybody recognize him?
What was her reaction in front of you when you saw her in the photograph?
She looked down at her phone and said, oh my God, that's my boyfriend.
Did she relay any information about Othel Wallace being the suspect and getting to the detectives?
Yes, I called Sergeant Karcher and Detective Denardi.
Yes, you can be released.
Yes.
Yes, sir. She's
People don't mind the lead. And we approach the other operator. That was, that's
Yes, ma'am.
So outside to only have a red and reserve, or you see number, not a reserve. So they have got to check that out.
okay.
Are you the city?
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
You please state when I and name is spelled for the board.
Monica Lee, Monica. Last name Lee.
And are you a law enforcement officer?
Yes, sir.
And what's your current rank?
I'm an officer.
Where are you the law enforcement officer?
Daytona Beach Police Department.
How long have you been?
17 years.
Any experience at other agencies or all of these?
All at Daytona Beach.
And what's your current assignment?
I'm in the training unit as the Axon administrator.
What is what training you do?
We train in-house and new recruits on, show them the ropes of the job, firearms, defensive tactics, OC, EVOC.
You're gonna need to say with the abbreviation, what you say, mostly involved.
Yes, so the pepper spray and evasive driving.
I think you said it so long ago that it was firearms training.
Yes, sir.
In regards to the firearms training, does it include a properly law enforcement weapon?
Yes,
Did you bring, did we go with you to that?
I did.
Please tell me, what is this unit?
It's a thicker leather belt where we keep all our gear, all of our equipment on that belt.
And when every officer on duty, uniform officer, full car have on duty belt,
Yes.
what types of things
Firearm, OC, taser, handcuffs, pouch for medical gloves, latex gloves, handcuffs, a radio, an asp.
There's an officer training, training that about, is that all part of duty belt training?
Yes, it's part of firearms training.
How long have you been in that process?
About 12 years.
Along with the duty belt, do you also bring up the dummy firearm?
I did.
What do you want to use the dummy firearm for?
To practice drawing the gun.
On a holster?
Yes, and for scenarios. So if we do scenarios, we use the blue guns instead of live guns, just so that our scenarios are like in a safer environment.
Is the blue gun in terms of its dimensions meant to limit the tactical firearm?
Yes.
And you had to bring the duty belt up with you?
Yes, sir, I did. Not yet.
Judge, I'd ask that you be allowed to sit down to demonstrate the things like the duty belt situation. You can shoot up way out here. Is that okay, your arms? Yeah.
Yes, so long as it's not pointing.
Yes. Right here. So just first point out the holster, Jim.
So this is the holster we use. It's, we call it a triple retention holster.
Why do you call it a triple retention holster?
It's 3 steps to get it right.
Can you take us through those steps and start with the very first step, officer, but after next slide?
So you have here, you push down on the button, and then you have to remove the hood, and then there's another button here. You have to push down on that button to remove the gun.
Oh, faster. Show us just the first step. What's the very first step?
The button, push down.
And the second step?
The hood,
And the third step?
another button.
Before the firearm can be removed.
Correct.
Thank you. Stand. Now we're talking about the other job responsibilities. You said Axon administrator.
Yes.
What is Axon administrator?
So I oversee all the Axon body cameras in the department.
Talk about those cameras a little bit. Who assigned Axon videos, body videos?
All sworn members.
We're going to already talk about a duty belt, but duty belt control and control officer in a one bar having Axon.
Yes.
And where do officers typically wear those Axons?
On their person, preferably on their chest. All patrol guys wear them on their chest.
How are the cameras maintained or kept up to date in terms of stock?
So every time they dock their cameras, it's updated automatically with the current firmware.
If you have a technical problem, a camera's not functioning, you have to send it back to the Axon.
We do.
You're not going in there trying to repair it.
Never.
said they did an update from the update, then also kind of charge.
Yes.
And how long does a charge typically last?
An entire shift, so it'll last 12 hours.
So is that also the kind of recording capacity to record up to 12 hours straight?
Yes.
Do the Axon cameras and videos accurately before the date and time?
Yes.
When an officer is responding to a call, how is the camera, how would an officer go about tagging it?
They would have to double press the circle button in the front of the camera.
Did you bring on an Axon camera with you as well to demonstrate the experience?
I did.
Or you should sit down and show the picture of an Axon camera.
Yeah, I identified some. Very well.
So, I'll ask you the last question. What are we looking at here? Is there anywhere on that camera like a screen that an officer can look at, video can taken or anything like that?
No.
Where is, can you point out to the jury where, is it the front, is it the front of the Axon camera? So an officer would be wearing it in his percent of his chest, for example. Yeah. And where is the activation button?
Big circle button.
Does an officer have to press it 1 time, 2 times to activate it? 2 times to activate, so a double tap?
Yes.
Fine, thank you.
Come next to me, show. Thanks.
Officer Lee, are there events other than the double tap by law, one of the officer of cause, or the act off the law automatically?
Yes.
One of those called a signal sign-on.
Yes.
What is that? What is that mean, signal sign-on?
It's a device that's mounted onto our holsters.
What is the purpose of that device that's not found?
So when you draw your gun, it'll activate your own camera and other cameras around you.
So, if you were on duty, hypothetically, and your body camera wasn't recording, you drew your body around the holster, you would start recording.
Yes.
And if I was on duty with you and I was standing, say, this far away, would my body camera also activate?
Yes.
And when an officer activates his camera, go back to just the double tap. When an officer double taps that camera to go on, does the camera actually record video even before the double tap?
Yes.
Can you tell us on that? What that is?
So it's a 30-second pre-event buffer where it records visually and audio.
So again, going back to our example with the signal sign-on, we also go back 30 seconds to that.
No, it would not.
Okay, let's see the double tap. So if you and I are on patrol, and I double tap my action on camera, I actually go back.
Sorry. I'm going to retract that. It would do the buffer.
Okay, wouldn't be fine.
Yes.
So, in the example of you drawing the firearm, the camera goes on,
Yes.
and it would happen 30 seconds prior to you drawing the firearm.
Yes.
But it also works that way with the double tap.
Yes.
Now, is that sometimes that 30 seconds, sort of 30 seconds back in time, is that sometimes affecting what someone calls sleep mode?
Yes.
What is sleep mode? And why do you use that?
So sleep mode is when we put our cameras into, it will not automatically activate with the signal sidearm or anything else. So you would actually have to manually activate your camera with your hand in order for your camera to activate on sleep mode. We have sleep mode in case officers are in the locker room or going to the bathroom or taking a private phone call, and then their cameras won't automatically activate on them while they're having privacy.
And going back to our example of us being completely together, if I had a camera attached to my chest, but it's on sleep mode, and I double tap the camera on, will it give me those 30 seconds before?
No.
And is that because of the sleep mode?
Yes.
I'm gonna get a little ahead of myself, was Officer Lane's camera activated on June 23rd, 2021? Was his camera on sleep mode?
Yes.
When an officer is finished with their shift, what do they do with the camera at the end of their shift?
They upload their videos,
And how do they do that?
either with an Axon cord or the docking station.
The same docking station where it charges this?
Yes.
The same docking station also where it updates as well?
Yes.
And once they adopt that camera, what happens to the video? The video that is on.
It goes into evidence.com.
And do officers tag their videos?
Yes.
How do they tag?
They're tagged either on evidence.com or through their cell phone.
And when I say tag, what does that?
It means putting a case number and a title to the video.
An officer, they also speeding, they have to upload that video, the agency number on that speeding stop.
Correct.
After an officer uploads video, docs and uploads, can they edit that video in any way?
No.
And do officers have the ability to see their video before it's done through their own cell phones?
Yes.
How does that?
So it is through a Bluetooth connection with the body cam and the cell phone, and they can view it on their cell phone until they dock it. And then once it's docked, it's completely deleted out of the cell phone. So it's in evidence.com.
Okay, so once it's docked, it's no longer in only evidence.
Correct.
And were you the Axon administrator back in June of 2021?
Yes.
To your knowledge, Officer Patrick Wallace equipped with an Axon camera to make the officer in the shut the film.
Yes.
To your knowledge, were the contents of his Axon camera uploaded and tagged in relation to this case?
Yes.
Did that Axon camera accurately record the date and time?
Yes.
Were there any technical problems that you're aware of issues with Officer Wallace's camera on June 23rd?
No.
Did Officer Erlinson's camera, have you reviewed the footage from Officer Erlinson's camera?
Yes.
Did it capture his finding Officer Jason Raymond behind on 13?
Yes.
Remember what looks around? Go to the states and identification and name. Do you recognize that DVD?
I do.
How do you recognize that DVD?
It's got my initials on it.
Does it also have a date?
Yes.
Have you watched the content of that DVD?
Yes.
What does it contain?
It has Officer Erlinson's finding of Officer Rayner.
Is it a shortened version of Officer Erlinson providing a look for video of that night?
Yes.
So it's a minute and a half, but it's small, something in that regard, is that right?
Yes.
And is this video that was on the CD consistent with the video that was uploaded by Officer Erlinson to Axon.com?
Yes.
During this time, Blue State 10, when evidence was extorted.
Yeah, I object under Crawford. Unavailable, it's movable.
That's what we did this time.
Judge, at this time, I'll move to publish, but now the evidence states 11.
Sounds only at 10:30, that's correct. Where is he? 5-7 Central Rescue Code. Where is he? Second gunshot wound. Who shot him? Come on, buddy. Hey, it's gonna be all right. Yeah, officer down. He's shot. Where's it at? Hold it, buddy. Hold it. Hey, talk to me, man. Talk to me, Jay. Where's the guy who shot him? Who shot you, buddy? Oh, man. Just hold on, buddy. Just hold on. Bam, man. Second rescue code 3. See if we can hear you. Oh my goodness. Get something to hold pressure. He got my shirt, sir. 10-3. Damn, man. Gunshot wound in his head and one in the chest. Come on, man. Just keep talking to me, buddy. Just keep talking. Get rescue here now. You're gonna be all right, buddy.
And in that video, officer, was there actually see an officer who was spotted wrong?
Yes.
Do you know it's Officer Rayner equipped with a body worn camera and shot on June 23rd, 2021?
Yes.
Were the contents of this camera uploaded and tagged in relation to this case number, or are they only in this case?
Yes.
Was the actual camera also placed in the evidence?
Yes.
Did Officer Rayner's Axon camera accurately record the date and time on June 23rd, 2021?
Yes.
Were there any technical problems with Officer Rayner's camera on that issue?
No.
Before going into that in the video, I want to talk to you a little bit about Axon audit. What is an Axon audit?
An Axon audit lists all the events that occur when an officer utilizes their Axon camera.
Right, that includes, for example, when it was in Silicon.
Yes.
Is that in fact how you know that Officer Rayner's camera wasn't Silicon with that?
Yes.
Is another one of those things that the Axon audit will capture the signal sidearm notification.
Yes.
And it'll capture that regardless of whether it's a signal or not.
Yes.
After the recording of Officer Rayner's interaction with the defendant, 8:50:36 p.m., are there any signal sidearms notifications in his office?
Yes.
And what time is that signal sidearm notification in Officer Rayner's office?
I would have to look at the exact time.
Do you have it with you?
Yes.
The refresh recollection would be a look.
Yes.
That's what you need to see.
No, it's
not. Was your refresh recollection?
It was at 8:54 and 47 seconds.
Between 8:50:36 seconds, when the video starts in relation to this incident, and that signal sidearm at 8:54:47, are there any other signal sidearms on the arm?
Between 8:50 and 8:54, no, sir.
Are there any notifications of withdrawn charge on that arm?
No.
Is that something you ought to also have?
Yes.
And in preparation for testimony in this case, you take a close look at the timing of Officer Erlinson video in relation to that signal sidearm that's indicated on the audit from Jason Rayner's body worn camera.
Yes.
And what did you discover?
That it was about the same time.
So when we see the officer in the jury, see Officer Erlinson brought his gun, running up to Officer Rayner's, that's the signal sidearm we see in Officer Rayner's audit.
Yes.
down to talk to you a little bit more about Officer Jason Rayner, body on camera. Was his camera docked in the video bubble?
Yes.
And that very night with that video, sent a detectives and investigator immediately after y'all got it.
Yes.
And program,
Right?
showing that with mark for identification, the states M and Mary. Same questions, do you recognize that DVD?
Yeah.
How do you recognize it?
My initial?
Did you also have a date? On that date, did you review the contents of that DVD? And what does that DVD contain?
Officer Rayner's interactions.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the body worn camera video that was uploaded on the body worn camera?
Yes.
Now, at this time, I move states N is in Mary, and that is permission on the floor.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Without objection, the minutes,
Your Honor, at this time, I would move to publish states 12.
How's it going? Do you live here?
What's going on?
Do you live here?
Why you asking? What's going on?
Sit down. Sit.
Sir.
Can you sit down? I'll talk to you.
Come on now.
Sit.
Come on now. Don't do this.
Sit down.
Why you asking me do I live here?
Do you live here? Yes or no?
What's going on though?
Cool, Charlie 77.
No, back up.
Stop. Stop, man.
Is that going on, Your Honor?
Yes.
In preparation for trial, within the local trial date, did you send a copy of Officer Rayner's background file to a Brian Shiles? Yes, on the
Yes.
was the examination?
Excuse me, TV's up to.
Hello.
Stated that sleep mode is used for when you, from the restroom and the bathroom or things like that.
We're on a private phone call.
What's the policy waiting there at someone's sleep?
It's that. It's for the officer's privacy.
So, you were looking at your eye, over there?
Yes.
Could you, tell me, if you know the answer, why every time Officer Green gets done with the call, he puts it at camera on sleep?
I cannot speak for him.
Is that a violation of?
I don't know what he was doing.
Well, if you were to look at, if you look at item 160,
Yes,
And is recording stopped from the compressor previously when you stopped recording that? That one?
yes,
Recording stopped. And then, when you look at item 167, 48, look for, sleep mode mute, right? So put the sleep mode back.
yes,
Let's go back to item 135, recording stop. Matter of fact, that's at 8:28, 27.
yes,
And then we go down and at 8:31 and 13 seconds, sleep mode mute. And that would be, that would then, I should have said, item 150.
yes,
Let's look at item 129. Recording stop and do the button press. And it's 7:52. And then item 136, 7:53, sleep mode mute. Is that common?
if he's making phone calls, I don't know what he's doing.
And when you, the nice thing, I guess, about the ability to sleep mode is that it alleviates the 30-second buffer.
Yes,
So we don't have any idea what happens 30 seconds before Mr. Rainer enabled his recording at the 8:50, the 8:50 mark. Right?
yes,
So because he keeps putting it in sleep mode, we don't get to see that, that is leading out to when it's the recording magic. We're missing 30 seconds.
yes,
And then you stated that the sidearm, is the sidearm activation start when you push the button, when you push the latch forward, or when you do the third part, or is it the open latch for fire?
could you repeat that, please?
So there's the three-step process to get the handgun out of the holster, right?
Yes,
So you stated that when you have a sidearm alarm, that it starts recording when you push the first button. When you do the second phase, which is move the latch forward, or is it the third phase when you hit the third phase, the jack on, or is it when the gun actually comes out of the holster?
when the gun actually comes out of the holster.
And then as far as the taser actually, the taser alarm actually doesn't start or go off until you actually discharge the
No,
when does it come out?
when you turn it on, it activates the cameras.
When you turn it on, or when you take it out of the holster?
When you turn it on.
Well, the gun doesn't turn on until you take it out of the holster,
Correct.
but the taser turns on early.
The taser, when you turn the taser on, it activates the
So
cameras.
you have to have the taser out of the holster, turn it on, and then it's recording.
Yes,
So by moving the latch on the taser forward, that will not start the recording.
no,
Yes.
an engineer setting up lots, but you don't know about the way those vehicles, anything that wouldn't want to do.
Correct.
And in terms of the signal side of notification, is that a fairly sensitive sensor in terms of what picks up packages?
It can be.
There's times where a rattle is caused, the siren will go off
Yes.
by a rattle, and basically shocks on the baby bevel and holster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Possibly, I don't know.
Right, thank you. You can read, bro. And, right, we can witness, yes, need to stay.
Subject to recall.
You feel on this. Allow them to use the microphone. Proceed.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon,
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name?
Sergeant Ryan Forrest, Forrest.
Where do you work, sir?
Work in the city of Daytona Beach.
How long have you been there?
I've been there since 2012, so 11 years.
I can take you back to June 23rd, 2021. Where do you work tonight, sir?
Yes, sir.
What capacity?
At the time, I was a regular patrol officer. I was working on the west side, Charlie Ship.
Can you just explain the west side of the gate?
The west side of Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach is split into two at the railroad tracks. So everything west of the railroad tracks is considered the west side, and I was working on the west side of that.
Would that have been the area, maybe strictly wise, with Coast Guard 95 and the Bucky would be?
Bucky's, Tangerelle.
Okay. So in that area,
Mhm.
at some point did you hear calls on the radio?
Yes.
What did you do when you heard the calls on the radio?
So I happened to actually be in the area of the tanker outlet. I heard Central come across the radio and say that an officer was down. They didn't really have a lot of information at the time. They said there was an officer down.
What did you do in relation to that?
I just kind of like listened to the radio a little bit more, and once confirmation that there was an officer down, units started responding down there. I went directly to the hospital instead of going to the scene. Generally, usually we do have shootings in Daytona. We send somebody to the hospital for security, family, to get a statement from the victim, notify the hospital that this is coming in, those type of.
When you arrived at the hospital, did you speak to the head nurse to verify what was going on?
I did speak to the charge nurse and told her that we had an officer down and coming in.
Did you stand by at the hospital till Officer Rainer arrived?
Yep, after I told the charge nurse the ambulance actually had called in, I waited by the trauma doors for Officer Rainer to get.
Did you see Officer Rainer when you arrived?
Yes.
Were you present when the code from Officer Rainer was collected and was provided to you?
Yes, it was.
Mr. Crofton?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what they mark as states K. You can look at these, sir. See if you recognize them.
Yep.
Are these the clothing items that you collected at the sir?
Yes, sir.
Outside of them being on a in plastic board, basically with the same or potentially same position. Anything changed or altered about that? Just as a statement, say, okay. Okay. Opposition?
At the minute, it's happening.
That's an accomplishment from your
Make
Now I'll show you what's in evidence or the, 13. You can just for, is this officer Raiders, the uniform, similar to your top of the uniform?
Yes, this would be the standard issue Class B uniform that is issued to all officers.
We're showing you what would be the second part of the composite. This is, would be his pants and stuff.
Pants, it looks like a keeper and a shirt stay.
When you collected these items, sir, where did you take them?
I was requested to, I was handed the items at the hospital. I took them, they were placed in a brown paper bag. I had to bring them to the courthouse on Ridgewood Avenue for FDLE was responding to take them back.
Did you respond to the courthouse?
I did respond to the courthouse, yes.
Ultimately, and folks don't really know where the courthouse is. That's the main courthouse for the north side of Orange County.
Yes.
When you arrived there, you have to take one to Orange County.
Initially, no. I had to go pick up, there was another piece of evidence I had to pick up. I did then respond over to the area where I met Deputy Cartagena from Orange County.
Did you provide him the, I guess, the uniform and also that subsequent item where there's a hat?
Yes.
I
did.
Did they transport that to you all?
Yes.
Was there a helicopter involved to try to expedite this?
Yes, there was a helicopter involved to get these items up to FDLE.
Yes. No further questions, Jeff.
Any cross-examination?
Officer, did you take any, not certainly understanding the chaotic time, but did you take any photographs of either the pants or the uniform prior to collecting the residence?
Not.
In any degree optimal, best practice would be to take photographs of the way collecting things.
It was already in the bag.
Okay. And that would have been this bag right here?
That is correct.
And so the submission was in the bag, and then this is for presentation for people, okay?
Yes.
Do you have any specific information about why Officer Rand responded to those?
I'm not going to see that outside the scope for all this.
There's a knife spot.
Yes, there is.
Is that a standard issue knife you know?
It's not issued by the police department. However, we do carry knives for a multitude of things, general tools. And
That's right around. Thank you.
No, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.